Hello, everyone. Welcome to MMA at Midnight. I'm your host, Shant Yeretzian. In this week's episode, we're going to preview Bellator 193, Lorenz Larkin versus Fernando Gonzalez, and we're also going to preview UFC on Fox, Derek Brunson versus Jacare Souza. Okay, let's start with Bellator 193. We'll start with some of the fights on the prelims worth mentioning. We have Justin Lawrence, which a lot of you know from The Ultimate Fighter. He's fighting against Andrew Natividad. Andrew, he has an 8-10 record, so I have to feel like I'm guessing this is kind of a showcase for Justin. Like, they want him to come out, get a knockout, kind of build him up a little bit. We knew he kind of fell flat in the UFC, and when they cut him, he had a couple losses. But maybe this is a chance. He has an exciting style. He goes to the knockout, some flashy moves. Maybe this is a showcase for him against a fighter maybe that might not be on the same level, but we'll see. So definitely tune in to check that fight out. Also, there's a heavyweight fight worth watching on the prelims. Tyrell Fortune versus Joe Hernandez. Tyrell, he's 3-0. He's definitely someone to keep an eye on. He's aggressive, athletic. With the heavyweight division being as thin as it is in any organization, he's definitely one of those prospects coming up to keep an eye on. We'll move on to the main card now. We have Kendall Grove versus AJ Matthews. This is kind of a do or die for both these guys. AJ Matthews is on a 4-fight losing streak, and Kendall Grove is on a 2-fight losing streak. Kendall Grove has lost to Alexander Shlemenko and John Salter in his last 2 fights, so he's looking to rebound from that, and also AJ Matthews is looking to get back on the win streak. So keep an eye on that fight. And we also have Syed Awad versus JJ Ambrose. JJ is on a 5-fight win streak, so he's definitely got some momentum behind him right now. So keep an eye out for him to maybe get another win. But Syed, he's on a 2-fight win streak. His last fight against Zach Freeman, that was an awesome finish. Some people thought it was early, but it was a good finish by Syed. Like if the referee didn't stop it, he was just going to keep hitting Zach Freeman. It would have been over in a few seconds. So Syed's been around Bellator for a long time. He's fought the best of the best, and he always brings an exciting fight. It's always action when he's fighting. So definitely tune in for that fight. And then we have in the main event Lorenz Larkin versus Fernando Gonzalez. A lot of people might not know who Fernando Gonzalez is, but don't sleep on this dude. This dude has some wins over some big names. He has wins over Caro Parisian. In his last fight, he beat Brendan Ward by a guillotine choke. He beat Marius Zaromskis. His only loss in the last 8 fights was to MVP. So he's doing really well. I know, like I said, and a lot of people might not know his name, but he's definitely a tough fight for Larkin. Larkin hasn't done so well since he got to Bellator. He has the 2 losses, the KO loss against Paul Daly and the decision loss to Douglas Lima. But those guys are top welterweights. Lorenz is still top 5 welterweight in Bellator. So I'm looking for him to rebound, and whoever gets those win between Larkin and Gonzalez, look for them to get a high caliber name, a big name after this fight. Okay, we'll move on to the UFC on Fox 27 with Derek Brunson versus Jacare Souza. I'm going to start with the prelims. On the Fight Pass prelims, we have Nico Price versus George Sullivan. George Sullivan is coming off a KO loss to Alexander Yakovlev in his last fight, and Nico Price is coming off a loss too in his last fight. He lost by choke to Vicente Luque. But Nico Price is 10-1. That was his only loss. A lot of people know Nico Price. He has that TKO win over Alan Jouban, which was really impressive. He might not be necessarily someone that's highly promoted. He's on the Fight Pass prelims, but like I said, he only has 1 loss, so don't sleep on him. He's someone to keep an eye on. We also have a bunch of women's fights on the card worth mentioning. None of them are actually like contender fights or anything that's like high in the rankings, but the women's fights always deliver, so I just want to mention them. You have Justine Kish versus Ji-Young Kim, Randa Marcos versus Juliana Lima, and Caitlin Chukagian versus Mara Romero Barella. So keep an eye on those fights. The women always bring it. You know, there's always action in the women's fights. We also have on the prelims, we have Mirsad Bektic versus Godfredo Pepe. Mirsad Bektic, he's coming off a KO loss to Darren Elkins, but he's 11-1. That was his only loss, so I'm looking for him to rebound, make a lot of improvements, changes. You know, we always talk about guys when their first loss, they end up learning so much from it. So just like Nico Price coming off his first loss, Mirsad, just look for him to be making improvements as well. Godfredo Pepe, he's always exciting, action fighter. He always brings it. He does have some holes in his game, but we'll see how he matches up against Mirsad Bektic. Moving on to the main card, we have Gregor Gillespie versus Jordan Rinaldi. Gregor Gillespie is someone to keep an eye on. He's 10-0. He's an undefeated fighter. Jordan Rinaldi, both these guys are kind of like up and comers. So look to whoever wins this fight. You know, they're probably going to get a push after or a big name fight after this. So yeah, keep an eye on Gregor Gillespie and Jordan Rinaldi. We also have Dennis Bermudez versus Andre Fili. Yeah, Andre Fili's coming off that win over Artem Lobov. You know, that seems like a long time ago. I don't know if it was what the date was, but it seems like it was like 6 months ago or so. Maybe he got an injury or just had some time off. But also, Dennis Bermudez is coming off a two fight losing streak. He lost by KO to Chan Sung Jung. So look for Dennis Bermudez to try and get back on the winning track against Andre Fili. And in the main event, we have Derek Brunson versus Jacare Souza. The first fight between them, if you haven't seen it, check it out on. They have it up on Fight Pass. They met in Strikeforce. It was a really quick fight. I'm not sure exactly how long it was, but I think it was like 30 seconds or something. Derek Brunson was being really aggressive coming forward, and Jacare caught him with a nice crisp hook that just like flattened him, and Brunson kept trying to recover, but Jacare was all over him and ended up knocking him out. It was a really good finish by Jacare. In Derek Brunson's last fight, he knocked out Machida. I'm sure a lot of people saw that. That was a really big win for him against a high caliber opponent, a big name. So look for Derek Brunson if he can get a win over Jacare to be like in that top five, that title talk mix as well. Jacare's last fight, he lost to Whitaker, but before that he had some good wins. He beat Vitor, he beat Tim Boach. So look for Jacare to come out, you know, with some fire, looking to get back on the winning track. So this is a really interesting fight. This whole UFC on Fox fight card, there's a lot of guys that are coming off losses and they want to get back on the winning track. So that's what kind of adds intrigue to this card for me. It's not necessarily that they're all like #1 contender fights or guys that all hunt for the knockout. It's that it's really going to dictate who's going to move up, who's going to keep going. You know, like I said, a couple undefeated fighters or fighters with just one loss, you know, see how they recover, how they learn and regroup from their losses. So that's what's going to make this UFC on Fox card interesting. It's kind of like the recovery of coming off a loss. We'll see how those guys do. Overall, with the Bellator tonight and the UFC tomorrow night, it should be a lot of fun, a lot of good fights. So definitely tune in for those. There's a segment I like to call Midnights of Our Past. In this week's episode, I'm going to cover Pride FC Total Elimination 2004. This was the first round of the Pride Heavyweight Tournament in 2004 with I was about to say Strikeforce Heavyweight Tournament. The Bellator Heavyweight Tournament kicked off last weekend with the first fight with Rampage versus Chael Sonnen. I wanted to cover the Pride Heavyweight Grand Prix, start off with that. This one was an amazing event. It was a legendary tournament, a lot of great fights, all the great fighters, heavyweights. Let's get started. We had Heath Herring versus Yoshiki Takahashi. This was a good fight. Takahashi actually came out pretty good strategy. He was bringing it to Heath Herring, but Heath ended up getting him down with some ground and pound and ended up finishing him with it, KOing him with the ground and pound. You had Semi Schilt versus Gan McGee. This was like the matchup of the giants. I believe they're both like 7 feet tall or close to it. So that was an interesting matchup. Definitely check that out. You had Stefan Lenko versus Noya Ogawa. Stefan Lenko was a high level K1 kickboxer for guys who don't know. And this was like his transition over. A lot of people saw Mirko doing well in Pride, so like the kickboxers wanted to step over to MMA and test their skills in that. Ogawa being like a professional wrestler, he kind of had his way with Lenko in there. But he also caught him. Stefan Lenko got dropped with a shot by Ogawa, so that was really interesting to see. Definitely a good fight to watch. Also, Sergey Haritonov versus Murillo Ninja Hua. Ninja moved up from middleweight, like he put on weight and not like muscle weight. He just like didn't, just ate whatever he wanted. It looked like from like his physique in that fight. And Sergey was just landing body shot after body shot. Like he kept throwing the right hook to the body over and over again, a Ninja, and it was landing solid. Some of the cleanest body shots I've ever seen in MMA. They just kept landing and landing. And then Ninja, he goes to block the shot to the body, but Sergey goes upstairs and just clobbers him with a right hook. And it sends Ninja stumbling onto the ropes, and Sergey just finishes him with a combination that knocks him out cold. That was a legendary knockout. It was a crazy fight. Definitely check that one out as well. It's like one legendary knockout after another. You got in the next fight, it was Kevin Randleman versus Mirko Krokop. This is when Randleman knocked out Krokop. Everyone was expecting Krokop to win this match and move on to face Fedor. That was the fight everyone wanted to see, Fedor versus Mirko. But Randleman, with the huge upset, with the huge punch, just knocked out Mirko. It was a violent KO. If you haven't seen it, definitely check that one out. You had Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira versus Hirotaka Yokoi. Yokoi was a young Japanese fighter coming up. He had some good judo. They kind of matched him with Nogueira to see. This was kind of trying to like kind of a highlight match for Nogueira, trying to build him back up. They wanted to build that rematch between him and Fedor. So that's what they were kind of working towards. And in the main event, you had Fedor Emelianenko versus Mark Coleman. Fedor being the Pride heavyweight champion, and Mark Coleman being a former UFC heavyweight champion. And Mark Coleman won the 2000 heavyweight Grand Prix in Pride. So it was kind of like the old guard versus the new guard. And Fedor ended up getting one of the fastest arm bars I've ever seen in any weight class. Not just heavyweight. For heavyweight, it's unreal. To this day, watching it, I can't believe how fast Fedor gets that arm bar. His hips move so like fluid, like stumbling on my words here. Like it's amazing the way he moves his hip on the ground from the bottom to get that arm bar. It was unreal. It was so fast. Coleman, it totally took him by surprise. I think he tried to hold out as long as he could, but Fedor just like straightened his arm out, and he was forced to tap. Coleman was like holding his arm afterwards. It looked like he pretty much like he hurt it. He got injured in the arm bar. That was so many great heavyweight fights on this card. So many great heavyweight fighters. The one thing about Pride, they might have had some fights that were like sideshow fights, but they brought everything to card. They always had a fight for everyone. They had a fight that was high level competition, the best of the best fighting each other. They always had like one sideshow fight. They had like one casual fight. One fight with maybe like a professional wrestler or like to bring in some attention from there, or Olympian or some other type of athlete. They had people think like, oh, Japanese sideshow fights. That's not all they had, and it was never the main event. The sideshow fights, they were always like in the middle of the card. And they knew how to bring in all types of audience. They brought in audiences from everywhere. Like they had one type of fight on every card. Like they had the sideshow, the contender fight, high level. They brought a little bit of everything to all the cards, and that's why they were so stacked, and why I believe they did so well. So that's really nice to see. Going back to watch the Pride fights, they had something for everyone, and it was very entertaining. The whole show and spectacle is amazing. If you can get a chance to watch the events from beginning to end with the intros and interviews, it's definitely an experience. It's a lot of fun. I love watching the old Pride events. Even it's to this day, like even back in the day, I used to love it, and I still do now. They're just a lot of fun. So check out Total Elimination 2004. Check out the Bellator tonight, and check out the UFC tomorrow night. And Sunday, I'll bring you a post-fight special recapping the Bellator and the UFC. And stay tuned every week for an episode. Subscribe to the channel, like the videos, and we'll keep you posted. Thank you, guys. Bye.